I'm so excited that Eric McKinley is with us here today. I'm just going to say a couple words. I'm going to brag him up a little bit. Eric is a graduate of the Rosemont MFA program, and I had the pleasure of being his thesis advisor and reading his novel on a couple of occasions. So this is, again, just like, yay, we get to celebrate, right? One of our grads has got his novel published, so yay! Yes, so Eric McKinley is the author of the novel Blessed Son, which was published by Rags Inc. in 2012. His short story collection Intrusion is scheduled for release in the fall of 2013. I did not know that. Congratulations.
I didn't know it either until a couple days ago.
Yay, that's awesome. All right. And he earned an MFA in fiction from Rosemont College in 2010. Samples of his work can be found at ericmckinleyfiction.wordpress.com. So please welcome Eric McKinley.
So I graduated from the MFA program in 2010, and I maybe went to half a dozen readings, none of which were ever this popular. so this is really cool to see all these people here at a Rosemont reading.
Must be you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. It's definitely not me. So thanks to Carla, and thanks for inviting me, and thanks you guys all for coming out. Because for about the half dozen or dozen readings that I went to when I was a student here, it was never this popular. So that's great. I'm just going to set up a little bit. I'm going to read three pretty short passages. The conceit of this novel is, if you can envision the Trayvon Martin story, except written way before that ever happened, and also set in Philadelphia with a shooter, a defendant who is way more sympathetic than George Zimmerman. And this novel takes you pretty much all the way through the court process, not entirely through, but I don't want no spoilers. It doesn't take you all the way through for reasons that will become clear if you ever read the book, which I invite you all to do. So there are three main characters, as I just said. In the Trayvon Martin story, there are going to be three main characters. There's Trayvon, who's no longer with us. There's George Zimmerman, and there's whoever George Zimmerman's attorney is. So those are the three main characters here. There's in the Trayvon part is a young man, excuse me, named Jarrell Walker. He was killed by an older gentleman named Saul Keenan, and Saul Keenan's lawyer is a guy named Jonathan Blaylock, and they all have many things in common. Most notably, they all are from Southwest Philadelphia. So that's just a little bit to set the stage. The first section is the very first few pages of the book, just introducing you to John Blaylock. It was one of 1,000 questions Jonathan Blaylock had grown tired of answering. Man, how they gonna charge me if they didn't find nothing on me? I know, I hear you, but possession doesn't have to mean actual physical, possession. John said this to R.J. Tran, his incarcerated client. He said it over and over again. It was 9:30 in the morning. They had already been together a while. They sat in the dankest courthouse holding cell, shoulder to shoulder, huddled over the case file. They looked down on its contents like two men who had discovered the rarest of stones. They strained to read in the cell's literal dimness. They were separated by only their breath. RJ smelled like shit. Many young inmates didn't bathe. They hoped to avoid the attention of older inmates. Sometimes it worked. RJ wore a khaki jumpsuit, silver shackles reflected against his skin. Then why do they call it possession if they don't find nothing on you? They didn't find nothing on me. They're saying it was on the porch, right next to you, right after the sale. That means you had control of it, which legally equals possession. Yeah, but it wasn't on me. They were the narcotics task force and the district attorney. What they didn't find on RJ was 107 dime bags of heroin. What they did find on him was $978 in his right front sweatpants pocket with keys, a pocket knife, and a yellow pack of juicy fruit gum. None of the bills recovered were higher than a 20. RJ had turned 18 2 days before his arrest. Jonathan didn't dislike him, which could not be said of all his clients, but he had grown tired of repeating himself. It doesn't have to be on you, and that's not what we're here for anyway. The other men in the open cell, lawyers, sheriffs, inmates, all turned their eyes toward John. They watched him yell at his client. Here was the Criminal Justice Center on Juniper between City Hall and Chinatown. RJ and Jonathan were about to enter courtroom 55. It was motion day, and John had filed one before Judge William Whitmore to suppress the 107 bags. The motion wasn't going anywhere, and neither was RJ. John had only filed the motion because he received no less than 4 voicemails a day from RJ's mother asking in the fastest fractured English he had ever heard what he was doing for her son. John's boss, Artemis Chamberlain, sole partner of Chamberlain and Associates, got one of the calls and assured the woman in his baritone voice that Jonathan was a very competent lawyer who will get your son home soon. Jesus, John thought, has this guy ever had a client? Didn't he know that you never promised him anything? Apparently not, because then Artemis sent John an email with motion papers attached instructing him to file before leaving work that day. It was 3 weeks later in the rank holding cell. All we're doing today is fighting the search, John said. Okay, yeah, RJ said, nodding, but John could see the cluelessness across his client's face. RJ was a street kid turned shaken first-time offender. Somewhere, John felt bad for him. In another larger place, John felt worse for himself. When he was 10, the list of what he wanted to be one day was Sixers point guard, Pulitzer Prize winner, and/or big-time criminal defense lawyer. In that order. At that age, John wasn't sure what a Pulitzer was, only that it sounded cool. Now, on the north side of 35 and 200 pounds, pro ball was out. Jonathan did manage to become a defense lawyer, but hardly big time. The Pulitzer was in serious doubt. So that's the first section. I'm going to try to shorten this because we don't have a ton of time, right? I'll go as fast as I can. This next section introduces you to Jarrell, and I'll just be quick. And this is the start of the 3rd chapter of the book. The next day started quietly. Rain overhead made the city much cooler than the day before, but the sun was still out. Almost everyone was at their stations. Jarrell was home today nursing his shoulder. Tracy knew that her son would go to baseball practice, injury or not. So Tracy held him out of school. She knew his coaches and teammates would not refuse him. Jarrell took advantage of restful solitude where many teenagers would, on the couch. Sprawled, eating Cool Ranch Doritos, drinking Hawaiian Punch, remote in hand. Watching television, talking on the telephone. The TV was for background. He channel surfed. It was mostly crap, particularly during the day. Jarrell tried to watch videos, but while he loved listening to music, he could not stand watching it. He could not stand BET. Could not stand MTV. It all felt like one interminable, continuous video. An authentic underground culture had been stolen, distorted for mainstream consumption. His favorites, Mos Def, Kweli, KRS-One, never made it to the networks. Jarrell would watch the loop for 15 seconds or so, grow frustrated, keep surfing. His English class was reading the Odyssey. Jarrell had it open now, on this, his day of rest. His eyes scanned the pages, his brain retaining nothing. The telephone would not stop ringing. The phone rang yet again. It was Sean. School had let out. It had started raining again, so there was no baseball practice. Sean and Khalif were coming over to hang out before Tracy got home. They were at his door in 15 minutes. "Dog, wipe your feet," Jarrell said to them as they walked into the house. "My bad," said Khalif, walking in from the enclosed porch. Sean wiped his feet on the shag rug behind them. "What's up with your shoulder?" Khalif asked. "It's cool, sore, but I'm alright." They all went to the couch now, with much less of a problem watching videos. Khalif grabbed the remote. He found a video in which the rapper spit solely about the size of the rims on his car. After 2 minutes, Jarrell had had it. The 3 friends walked out into the wet but sunny late afternoon, onto the cracked pavement, down Jarrell's block, toward Keenan's Grocery and Variety. Saul Keenan was there like always, alone. The years had not been good to him. Saul's hope was ravaged. It had died not long after his wife, Rella, who was the reason for being in this hood in the first place. 40 years. Like many old men, Saul was embittered because his life had not turned out as planned. Brain cancer had taken his beloved. His business had never expanded, never became viable enough to sell. Saul sat today on the stool behind his counter, unshaving, staring at a black and white television. He was 76, sure that tomorrow would go precisely as today was going, as yesterday had gone. It pissed him off. The old bell rang above his door. Saul was startled. Jarrell and his boys walked in. He sat up straighter. He took his glasses from his shirt pocket, put them on. Of the boys, he only recognized Tracy Walker's son. Saul remembered when he could call all of his customers by name. That had stopped happening about 10 years ago. He knew some, the older ones, but the young faces were always changing. All right, so the last section is post. Not to give too much away, but post-shooting. Jarrell's dead. John's assigned to represent Saul, and they are meeting to discuss what they have to discuss. And I'm just going to start right in the middle of dialogue, and we're starting with Saul. What else? Saul said. I'm sorry? You said you had things to tell me. What else did you want to tell me? Yes, sure. The next thing I want to tell you is that you're going to have to be very patient. In a case like this, where someone passes, there's a lot of work that goes on outside of your regular case. There are medical things, ballistics, all types of things that slow down bringing the case to court. You may not make bail, so you're going to be sitting here a long while, and you need to be patient because it's going to seem like nothing's happening, like you're here for nothing. But I assure you, there are things happening outside of court. You can say that I killed him. I'm sorry? You keep saying that someone passed. That in a case like this where someone passes, you can say that the young man died because I shot him. You can say that I killed him. Mr. Keenan, you're charged with murder, but let me say that I wasn't there, so I don't know whether you killed him or not, and neither does anyone else. John was trying to convince them both of his allegiance. He didn't know how it was going. Saul's expression was in flux, difficult to read. That's nice of you to say, Saul said. I'm not saying it to be nice, Mr. Keenan. I'm saying it because we don't know anything yet. I was there, I know. And we can't go around saying we did anything. It has to be proven. It was John's best lawyer speak for the time being. He didn't know the exact sentiment behind Saul's words, but no matter what his new client said, John knew that he could never agree that Saul was culpable. John had long ago learned an axiom, although he didn't recall where, that said, never reveal personal opinion to your client, especially when your client asks. Do you follow what I'm saying, Mr. Keenan? Call me Saul. Thank you, I appreciate that. Do you follow me? Saul nodded again and said, yes, I understand. Good. Now, let me ask you some questions. Please be honest with me, otherwise it's going to be much harder for me to help you. Do you think I'm going to lie to you? No, Mr. Keenan, I don't. A fat lie in itself. I'm just giving you information. I said you can call me Saul. And I said I do appreciate it. John was starting to remember that he didn't want to be there. How old are you? John asked, picking the pen up again. 76. How long have you lived in Philadelphia? 70 years. My family moved here when I was a child. From New York. Do you have family in the area? My wife. I have my wife. Saul spoke this at a whisper. John remembered Rella Keenan. The first thing he remembered was that she was so well liked in their neighborhood, always sort of raising Saul's stock in people's minds, accurately or not. The second thing John recalled is that Rella was a colossal Phillies fan. Lastly, he recalled hearing some years ago that she had died. John said, I'm sorry, Mr. Keenan, can you speak up a little? I said, I have my wife. Where is she now? Saul didn't respond. John let them sit for what seemed like a reasonable amount of time, under 30 seconds, then he said, Mr. Keenan, do you have any other family? Saul sat at a whisper, no, I don't. They sat a few moments more. Mr. Keenan, on Monday morning, you're going to have your arraignment. It's a hearing where the judge reads us the charges, sets bail, and we enter a preliminary plea. Plea? Yes, we're going to be pleading not guilty. John could see the question mark scrawled across Saul's face. He continued, an arraignment is mostly formality. It doesn't commit us to anything. The main thing for us now is bail. There are many factors that the judge will consider to set your bail. John paused, unable to discern if Saul followed or not. For example, do you have any medical conditions that would make jail even more of a hardship? Do you mean other than being 76 years old? Point taken, John said, but yes, I do mean other than your age. My health is what it is, nothing special, good, or bad. Do you have a doctor I can talk to? No. You don't have a doctor? I haven't been to a doctor in years. John could relate. Okay then, Mr. Keenan, how far did you go in school? I graduated from West Philly High, back when it was still a decent school. Then I went to work, took over my father's store, my store. John sensed a trace of pride in Saul's recounting. The old man slumped further onto the mushroom stool. Speaking of which, John said, Mr. Keenan, about how much would you say your store is worth? I'm not going to sell my store. No, I wasn't suggesting I'm not going to sell my store. The bass in Saul's voice had increased. I understand that, but so it's clear, I'm not saying that you are. You won't have to sell your store. We would offer to post it as a bond for your release, like collateral. Saul lifted his eyes to John's. Tell me your name again. John Blaylock, Mr. Keenan. John Blaylock, I'm not going to sell my store. John nodded twice, decidedly on board with letting this drop. He could hear Saul softly wheezing. John placed the pen down, having taken all the notes he wanted for the moment. He had enough to say something on Monday in an attempt to lower the old man's bail. John knew, though, that notwithstanding anything he said, the bail was going to be exorbitant, and without family help or the use of the store, Saul wasn't paying it. John rested his elbow on the ledge and the left side of his head on his hand, smushing his face until his wrist was sore. He thought that from outside this room, looking in, he and his client must have looked pitiful. And now, John would ask this meeting's $64,000 question. That's it. Thanks, Chris.